through the empire, really, being the masters of that empire. And if people admire dictators, there is no obstacle in becoming one or submitting to one. So how to really, tackle that cycle is that history matters. I mean, our history books were rewritten after we regained our independence to reflect all the crimes that were committed. It was not the same for Russia. They are teaching and learning from the Soviet history books. So the accountability is of utmost importance for the crimes of aggression.
This is my first video update coming to you from Athens, Greece on this Monday morning. Let's talk about some news, and let's start things off with the comments made by the Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas, very Greek-sounding name, during her panel session at the Munich Security Conference. And the Estonian Prime Minister, she basically said that NATO countries have to take control of Moscow, and they have to rewrite the mentality of Russian citizens so that the Russians will never be a threat again to Europe. And this is what the Estonian Prime Minister had to say during her session at Munich. Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas has suggested that the entire population of Russia must be re-educated to root out any traces of imperialistic dreams, claiming that otherwise, with or without President Vladimir Putin at the helm, the history will repeat itself and Europe will never be safe. Expressing no doubt that with the help of NATO, Ukraine will eventually defeat Russia on the battlefield, Kallas claimed on Sunday it was high time to discuss the question of accountability for the conflict and how to deal with the Russians who admire dictators. Our history books were rewritten after we regained our independence to reflect all the crimes that were committed. It was not the same for Russia, Kallas said during the last day of the Munich Security Conference. The Russians are defining themselves through the empire, really. They are the masters of that empire. If people admire dictators, there is no obstacle to becoming one or submitting to one, she said, arguing that the only way to break the cycle is to rewrite history books. History matters. They are still teaching and learning from Soviet history books, she added. And I'm not talking about Putin, not Putin. It's the nation and what's in it. What are they celebrating, really? We have to cut that cycle. Drawing parallels with NAZI Germany, Kallas argued, only after the Nuremberg Tribunal, the German people got to know about the crimes that the NAZIs committed, hence the change in mindset. Wow. Wow. Where to begin? Where to begin with this statement from Kallas, the Estonian Prime Minister? A lot of projection going on here. So she talks a lot about accountability because the collective West, they always have to hold to account the Russians and the Syrians and the Chinese and the Indians and the 80% of the world. They're accountable for their actions, but the collective West, nah, they're not accountable. No one's accountable for Syria and Libya and Serbia and Iraq and all of these crimes. No one is held to account in these crimes. But when it comes to holding others accountable, well, they love that word, accountability. And then she talks about Russia's imperialistic dreams. This is the Estonian Prime Minister, a country that is a part of NATO, a country that is a part of the EU, and the country that is aligned with the United States. But it's Russia that has imperialistic dreams, not the United States with its 3,000 military bases around the world. There's no empire there. No empire there at all. Not NATO, which has expanded eastwards, or the EU, which has also expanded. It's Russia that has the imperialistic dreams. Interesting view of the world from Kaja Kallas. We have to keep in mind that the Estonian Prime Minister is not exactly the sharpest knife in the drawer. She's probably a couple of IQ points above Trudeau or Annalena Baerbock, but that's not saying much. I'm sure much of what she's saying here in these statements is just kind of regurgitated things that she's heard other collective West leaders say as she floats around at various cocktail parties or gatherings that the NATO, EU, collective West elite have. So I'm sure she's just overhearing a lot of the stuff that Blinken and Nuland, Stoltenberg and Ursula are talking about, and she's just kind of repeating it. How do I know that? Well, because she just basically repeats what Anthony Blinken said yesterday, when Anthony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, said that he has no doubt that Ukraine will win the war against Russia. And Kallas is just basically repeating that, expressing no doubt that with the help of NATO, Ukraine will eventually defeat Russia on the battlefield. That is what Kallas claimed in Munich. So she has no doubt that with the help of NATO, Ukraine will win. But NATO is not a party to the war. It's the help of NATO that will lead Ukraine to victory. But always remember, NATO is not a party to this conflict, right? Right. So the big problem with Kallas is her hatred and racism towards the Russian people. That is the big problem. Because when you say stuff like, I'm not talking about Putin, it's the nation and what's in it. What are they celebrating really? We have to cut that cycle. That's when you start to realize that this is beyond Ukraine. This is beyond some sort of conflict between two countries. And what this is really about is destroying Russia. Not even the physical nation of Russia, not even like the Russian Federation, the borders of Russia, though that's part of the plan, is the Balkanization of Russia. They're telling us this now openly. Every day they're now talking about how they're going to Balkanize Russia. That's part of it, but the real problem here is that our collective West leadership, they want to destroy Russians, like the Russian people, the citizens, the culture, the history, the spirit, the soul, because for Kallas, the problem is what's in it. It's what's inside the Russian people. That's what she says. It's what's inside the Russians that has to be rewritten, has to be broken. The Russian spirit has to be broken. It's only when you break that Russian spirit, by breaking apart the country, breaking the language, breaking the history, breaking the culture, that's when Europe can live in peace, according to Kallas. Incredible statements from the Estonian Prime Minister, who I believe speaks Russian. I believe she actually speaks Russian, which is surprising because usually when you learn a language, it usually brings you closer to that culture and that people. It usually unites. It doesn't create hatred. It should unite you to the culture and that people. But in this instance, I think we're dealing with some very deep psychological trauma that Kallas probably has. I can't say from what or when, but obviously this is very emotional for her. Her hatred for the Russian people is very, very deep and emotional. And then she talks about tribunals as well. She brings up Nuremberg because this is their wet dream. The collective West is absolutely fixated on some sort of televised tribunal where they bring out Putin and Zakharova and Lavrov and Shoigu, and they parade them to the world and hold them accountable, sending a message to any other dictator or despot, whether it's Xi Jinping or Modi or Assad or anybody else. Don't you dare break away from the collective West orthodoxy, or else this is your fate. They're really fixated on tribunals. As the conflict progresses, as we get to the 1-year mark and the conflict progresses, the collective West leadership, they are openly talking about their 4 goals for Russia. And they're openly talking about it. Nuland talked about it in her interview with the Carnegie think tank. Blinken mentioned it the other day. Stoltenberg talks about it. Kaja Kallas is talking about it. Ursula von der Crazy, she talks about it all the time now. And I mean, they're openly talking about it. Their four goals after they defeat Russia, because they're very confident that Ukraine, with NATO's help, is going to defeat Russia. But NATO is not a party to the war. We always got to say that. NATO is not a party to the war. But NATO's help is going to help Ukraine defeat Russia. And once that's done, their 4 goals are Balkanization of Russia, to break it up, balkanize it. Tribunals. They have to get the tribunals. The reparations, the money. You got to get the money from the Russian state, the 800 or 900 billion, and you got to rewrite now Russian history and culture and language and all of these things. I think Zakharova put up a Telegram post the other day where I forgot the country. I want to say it's a country in Africa, but I'm not sure. But she posted something along the lines of a country with French influence and French education is teaching the students in the classroom that Pushkin was French and not Russian. Something like that. So you have to rewrite the history and the culture. Kind of like what they're trying to do in the United States, by tearing down the statues and all of these new history narratives that they're trying to throw out there, trying to redefine and rewrite American history, because American history was just inherently bad, and so we have to redo it. Well, it's the same approach with Russia. I mean, what they're trying to do with the United States inside the United States from within is what they're trying to force upon Russia from the outside. It's really the same thing. You have to break it down, break it apart, and then remake it in their neoliberal image. So those are the 4 things that they're now talking about, which have to happen to Russia. Break it up, get the tribunals, get the money, and rewrite the history. And they're openly talking about it. It's very odd, because a year ago they were not openly talking about this. They were kind of whispering it, they were hinting at it, but now they're just openly coming out and saying it at conferences and at events. And they have no doubt that Ukraine's going to win. Blinken said it. Kaja Kallas said it. She's just repeating what Blinken said. I mean, she's just regurgitating what Blinken said. But still, they're absolutely confident that Ukraine is going to win with NATO's help. Of course, there's the problem of ammo, which Borrell is complaining about. Ukraine is running out of ammo because it was Russia that was running out of ammo, but now the truth is that Ukraine is running out of ammo. That's the real truth. And Borrell, keep in mind, this is the chief diplomat of the European Union. The chief diplomat, he's not talking about peace, he's not talking about diplomacy or ceasefire, he's not engaged in negotiations, he's not traveling to Moscow to meet with Lavrov to try and find a solution, to try and broker a peace deal. He doesn't do that type of diplomacy. That's not how Borrell, Jungle Josep, that's not how he rolls. Jungle Josep, he's a war hawk. He's a war hawk, and he's sounding the alarm bells. because he is saying that we, as in the EU, the collective West, we are in urgent war mode. That is what Borrell said on Sunday during the last day of the Munich Security Conference. He added that the conflict would be over if the shortage of ammunition was not resolved in a matter of weeks. The diplomat bemoaned the depletion of European stockpiles, claiming that the Union forgot about classical wars, only engaged in expeditionary forces and technological blitzkrieg. Borrell announced that the EU defense ministers would hold a special meeting on March 8 and 9 to attempt to resolve the issue. Borrell said that he will also present the idea of using the 3.6 billion euros of the European Peace Facility to jointly buy ammunition for Kiev, using the EU's experience in joint procurement of CUF vaccines. So I've been talking about this in a couple of videos. They're going to create the slush fund, taking money from the European Peace Facility, an interesting name there. They're going to take money from the European Peace Facility, which is paid for by European taxpayers, and they're going to take this money, put it in a slush fund, and just like they did with the pandemic, they're going to pool this money together and use it to buy ammo. And of course, when you put together these types of slush funds, you always have to pay out 10% for the big guy, or in this case, the big guys of the EU kleptocracy. These are great mechanisms to skim off the top, pooling all the money together in a slush fund and then buying the ammunition, and everyone is going to get their cut as well. But they do love these mechanisms because it's a good way to line their pockets. But they're going to pool this money from the EU Peace Facility, and they're going to buy ammo because, according to Jungle Josep, if they don't get ammo for Ukraine, well, then the war could be over in a couple of weeks, and they can't have that. They have to keep the war going. And I'm going to tell you why they have to keep the war going. Or at least what I believe is their new strategy with regards to this conflict. But this is a chief diplomat, not talking about peace or a ceasefire, preventing the senseless death of tens of thousands of people, Ukraine military, kids as young as 17, young girls now that are on the way to the front lines. He's not concerned about that. He's concerned about getting ammo so that this war drags on a little bit longer. Forget tanks. Tanks, they're only getting 80 tanks to Ukraine by April. Their goal was 350. They've only got 80. Forget about fighter jets. They want ammo because they want this type of war of attrition to drag on. They want the destruction of Ukraine to drag on. That's what Borrell is concerned with. And the reason they want this ammo to drag on, this attrition war to drag on by providing ammo to the Ukraine military, is because I believe their strategy now is to deplete Russia of ammo and weapons. I have a feeling that they still believe that Russia, sooner or later, is going to run out of ammunition and weapons. And if they can continue this war of attrition with Russia, even though it means tens of thousands of Ukrainians dying, if they can continue this war of attrition in Bakhmut and in other places in the Donbass, they feel that they can starve Russia of ammo. And eventually that would lead to NATO and to the collective West engaging with Russia and defeating Russia, because Russia would be depleted of its weapons stockpiles. I really believe that is their strategy now. They're thinking that the longer we can drag this war on, the closer we can get to Russia running out of weapons, specifically ammunition and artillery. That's their goal. I say that because you have the statements from the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations and Blinken meeting with Chinese officials. And they're telling China, don't you dare send lethal aid to Russia. That's going to be a red line, according to Blinken and to the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. I believe her name is Thomas Greenfield, I think. Let me pull up the article here. Yeah, Linda Thomas Greenfield. So Blinken was meeting with Wang Yi on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference, and the U.S. envoy to the UN, Linda Thomas Greenfield, she gave an interview to CNN, and she said that any nation providing lethal weapons to Moscow in its ongoing conflict with Kiev would cross Washington's red line. Quote, "We have to be clear that if there are any thoughts and efforts by the Chinese and others to provide lethal support to the Russians in their brutal attack against Ukraine, that is unacceptable," Thomas Greenfield told CNN's State of the Union, adding that it would be a red line. Her words came as Blinken was meeting Wang Yi on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference in Germany. There, the U.S. diplomat told the Chinese counterpart that the U.S. was very concerned that China's considering providing lethal support to Russia. Blinken told NBC's Chuck Todd in the wake of the meeting, I made it clear that would have serious consequences in our relationship," the state secretary added. He also claimed that the U.S. was aware of Beijing providing Moscow with non-lethal assistance over these past months, adding that this aid allegedly goes directly to aiding and abetting Russia's war efforts. Blinken also said that Washington got some information that indicates China was strongly considering providing lethal assistance to Russia too. He did not provide any details on the nature of the information the U.S. had obtained or the exact type of aid for Russia that China was supposedly considering. Instead, he said that some more details would be revealed in the future. The state secretary also said that Beijing had not crossed that line yet. So the collective West, all these leaders, they operate through projection. Everything is about projection. You know, Kaya Kallas saying that Russia has imperialistic dreams. That's her projection, because she's part of organizations and alliances that are imperialistic and have imperialistic dreams, but she projects that onto Russia. She probably doesn't even know it. She probably doesn't even recognize it, because Kaya Kallas definitely needs to enter therapy. There's no doubt about that. But she doesn't even realize her own projection. But all of these collective West leaders, they work on projection. That's how their brain is wired. And so I have a strong feeling, a strong hunch that because they're running low on ammo, because they don't have weapons to give to Ukraine, or they don't have the right weapons to give to Ukraine, or their weapons are breaking down, like Ben Wallace said in an interview, I believe with Der Spiegel, that all of the tanks that they're looking to provide are all broken and busted, and they need to be fixed up before they can even send them to Ukraine. That's what Defense Minister of the UK, Ben Wallace, said in an interview with Der Spiegel. Anyway, because they're having all these problems and issues and they're running out of ammo, I think they're just projecting that onto Russia. And so their strategy now is to go to China and eventually to go to India and any other countries. Iran, I imagine they're going to start targeting any other countries. Go to those countries and threaten those countries with these types of ultimatums. You know, if you provide ammo and weapons to Russia, well, then we're going to, I don't know. They don't even say what they're going to do to China. Whatever they're going to do, they're going to do. But this is projection, because they feel that Russia is, because they're running out of ammo, then Russia has to be running out of ammo. And if that's the case, then their strategy is to figure out ways, to figure out pressure points where they can starve Russia from getting more ammo, while they actively work to provide the ammo for Ukraine. That's going to be the difference. That's what they feel will make the difference in this conflict. we're going to figure out ways to get ammo to the Zelensky regime, while at the same time, we're going to starve Russia of ammo and weapons and artillery. That's what's going to win us this war in the long run. And once Russia is weakened, they run out of ammo. They don't have any more ammunition because they're not able to get it from China or Iran or whatever. Then that's when we can make our move to not only defeat Russia in Ukraine, but make our move on Crimea and eventually make our move inside of Russia, whether that's a color revolution or whatever other regime change operation they have in mind, or even a direct intervention into Russia. Who the hell knows? Who the hell knows what's going through their heads? But that's the strategy that they now have in place. They're projecting their low ammo onto Russia, and they're probably under the belief, maybe it's correct, most likely it's not, but maybe it's correct. They're under the belief that Russia is running out of ammo, and they're going to try to get help from China and from Iran, and the collective West is now working to try and prevent that, while at the same time trying to get the ammo to Ukraine so Ukraine can defeat Russia in this war. Borrell hints at it. In his panic, in his statement, he hints at it, that the EU, that the collective West, has to change their war tactics. The collective West is in urgent war mode. They have to change the mode of how they think about war. This is not about technology and blitzkrieg. That's what Borrell said. This is a classical war. They finally realized that this is a war of the likes we haven't seen, maybe since not even World War I, because now you have all the technology and the drones and everything else. But this is a war of attrition. This is ammo and artillery and stuff like that. And so, Borrell is saying what Europe has to do now is beef up Ukraine so they can fight this war, while at the same time, because we feel Russia's running low on ammo and weapons, we have to starve Russia. That's their strategy. That's what I think their strategy is. That's why they're warning China. That's why they're going to warn Iran. That's why they're going to warn India. And they're going to run around the world and try to figure out ways to starve Russia from getting ammunition. North Korea, things like that. That's what's going to lead to their victory. That's what's going to lead to the no doubt NATO victory on the battlefield that Kaja Kallas is talking about and that Blinken also mentioned yesterday. So let's do one more story, and then we'll do a clown world. There's some guy yelling at some other people down there. I don't know about what. He's upset with them. Anyway, we have a statement from Kirby, and I believe this is the highest level denial yet from the U.S. government that they did not have anything to do with Nord Stream, like the Seymour Hersh article claims. Kirby was giving an interview to Fox News. He's Washington's National Security Council Director, or something like that is his title. I don't even know. The guy has a huge title. Anyway, he gave an interview to Fox News, and he said, it's a completely false story. That is what Kirby told Shannon Bream of Fox News. There is no truth to it, Shannon. Not a shred of it. It's not true. The United States, no proxies of the United States had anything to do with it. Nothing. So that was Kirby's response to Shannon Bream, who actually asked him the question about Nord Stream. Now, I imagine that Kirby was briefed ahead of time with this question from Shannon Bream. If it was Tucker Carlson, I would say that it was, not that Kirby would go on Tucker Carlson, but if Tucker Carlson threw that question at Kirby, then I would say that it's genuine. Like Tucker Carlson is really trying to get to the bottom of what happened at Nord Stream. But the fact that it was another Fox host, Shannon Bream, I imagine that this was all coordinated and planned. And Shannon Bream asked Kirby about Nord Stream, and Nord Stream And Kirby gave his denial on Nord Stream. Kirby never lies, right? Never. He never lied about Maidan. He never lied about Syria and moderate rebels. Never lied about Libya. I think he was in the Obama administration during Libya. He never lies. He never ever lies. Never once. But anyway, that's a pretty high level official now denying the Nord Stream claims from Seymour Hersh. Of course, I'm sure there's a way that we could pick apart his statement, but I don't know. There's no truth to it, he says. Not a shred of it. It's not true. No proxies of the United States had anything to do with it. Nothing. Just trying to figure out a way. Is there a way to pick apart his statement? Is there a way that he's leaving a little bit of room there to walk it back? Not sure. It still would be nice to get a denial from, say, Burns or Biden himself or someone like that. But the story is definitely gaining traction and gaining momentum when you have Kirby staging this Q&A denial on Fox News. No doubt that this is rattling the Biden White House. So Kirby had to do this interview and had to take this question from Shannon Bream and issue this denial. Anyway, that's the latest on Nord Stream. And let's now do a clown world. And this clown world deals with Sean Penn and his documentary. Did you guys know that Sean Penn had a documentary on Zelensky and Ukraine? The name of the documentary is called Superpower. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Superpower reviews Sean Penn's intensive and very first-hand account of the war in Ukraine. The Hollywood actor and activist chronicles Russia's invasion of Ukraine from the ground, including 3 exclusive interviews with President Zelensky. It's been almost a year since Russia shocked the world by launching an invasion or special military operation per Vladimir Putin of Ukraine, touching off a bloody and devastating conflict that is still very much ongoing with no visible end in sight. The fog of war is so thick that it's hard for any of us to see through it. And in that sense, the documentary Superpower, co-directed by Sean Penn and Aaron Kaufman, serves as a decent primer as to how the conflict started and what the stakes are and who remain the key players, with a special focus on Ukraine's unlikely hero of President Zelensky. But after sitting through the 2-hour-long expose, one could perhaps be mistaken in thinking that another key player in the war is Penn himself. So much is the Hollywood star present in nearly every scene in the film that doesn't involve archive footage, of which there is quite a lot. And then basically talks about how this is pretty much just another narcissist Sean Penn kind of film. Another narcissist Hollywood actor documentary where it just follows Penn around his 3 trips to Ukraine, and he kind of chronicles the conflict, 1 year of the conflict in Ukraine. Sean Penn says the U.S. has to accept a level of shame for not arming Ukraine faster. Sean Penn at the premiere of his new documentary on Zelensky. Right. Anyway, that is Sean Penn and his documentary on Ukraine called Superpower. From what I understand, 1 second here. What I understand, Sean Penn is involved in some sort of company. He's on the board of some sort of company that has an NGO or something that has a stake in business in Ukraine, something like that. Here's a tweet that I found from Tone Police Nuclear War Protest. Tone police nuclear war protesters is this Twitter account. Blue check mark. Interesting side note is Sean is on the board of CORE, which has a contract that benefits from Ukraine war funding. And he cites a Bloomberg article here in this tweet, which says Sean Penn's disaster relief charity ended up a money mess. CORE saved American lives during the pandemic, employees say. It has also failed to shield them from alleged sexual harassment or address financial mismanagement. This may need a little bit more digging, this CORE charity that seems to have its fingers in the KUF and in Ukraine. Interesting charity there, Sean Penn. I wonder if that would explain why he's so interested in keeping the Ukraine conflict going. Anyway, how about this from Disclosed TV, this tweet? Putin no longer has nuclear weapons, writes German Bild in its leading article citing former Soviet KGB spy Yuri Shwez. And you can see the cover here from Bild. That's scary. So they're trying to build a narrative that the collective West can absolutely strike at Russia first because the whole Russia has nukes is just a bluff from Putin. I go back to what I think is going on here, which is that the collective West, they believe that Russia is losing ammo, is losing weapons, is running out. Now they're running articles. Bild is running an article saying that Russia doesn't really have nukes. Their goal is to go after Russia. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but their goal is to go into conflict with Russia, and they want this war extended, this attrition war extended for as long as possible to weaken Russia, so that they can eventually do something towards Russia. This is where they're taking us towards. That's why Kamala Harris and Rishi Sunak, they called this a global war. This is where they are leading us towards. That's why the Bild is running an article with the title like, Russia doesn't have nukes, it's all a bluff. They want all of us to believe that Russia is weak, it's running out of weapons, Putin's bluffing, and Ukraine is going to win. And so the collective West is going to make a very, very stupid move. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. This is what I believe is going through the heads of Newland and Lincoln and Sullivan and the empty head of Biden and really empty heads of Baerbock and Kallas and all these people. Anyway, all right. I will leave the video there, everybody. theduran.locals.com. We are also on Rockfin. Go to the Duran shop. This is my Texas Duran sweatshirt that I'm wearing today. Big up to everyone in Texas. I've been to Texas a couple of times. Absolutely loved it. The great state of Texas. Very, very cool people. Very nice people. Very tough people as well in Texas. Anyway, that is the video. Take care. Duran shop, 10% off. Take care.